My partner and brother make fun of how I sit when I drive. Seat pulled as far forward as it will go, lifted up to the roof, a cushion under me to further boost me up, my neck sticking out like a meerkat, my arms in praying mantis position with the seatbelt cutting across my neck. You see, pulling the seat that far forward is the only way my toes can actually touch the pedals. And elevating it is the only way I can see properly over the windscreen and in front of the car. And no matter how many times I adjust the seatbelt at the traffic light, it will still find a way of sliding past my not so tiny bosom and wedging itself against my carotid artery. And so many other women look so peculiar when we drive is because when they design cars, we are not their default human being. And it's not just cars, it's bulletproof vests, activity watches, smartphones, everything around us. From our built environment to our legislation and to medication, the default human being is a man. This default for the male anatomy and biology is even more pervasive in medical research, where the ideal research subject is male. Male humans, male rats, male cells. And all of this is because women experience a pesky little thing called the menstrual cycle, which means while male biology is fairly consistent day to day and month to month, no single day of the month is the same in a woman's body. And that is considered rather inconvenient in medical research. Because you see, the menstrual cycle hormones and their fluctuations affect literally everything in the human body. And so they need to be controlled for or eliminated. Otherwise, then you're going to need more people to test something on, and you need to do fancy statistical gymnastics to analyze this data. And that is just so time-consuming, difficult, and expensive. This level of difficulty and cost is defined by the same species that has several rovers on Mars, invented a million ways of warfare, and has taught robots to dance. In order to avoid this difficulty and inconvenience, we just study men, because studying women is a tad bothersome. Who cares that by not studying women and girls, the narratives of over half of the world's population are ignored? We study it and finesse it in men. And then, as coined by Kristin Yu, you shrink it and pink it for women. Fast forward a few steps between research and product development, and the result is a pink car whose seatbelt sits on my neck instead of my chest, antibiotics that are not compatible with some contraceptives, and vaccines with Lord knows what effects on the menstrual cycle. It gets worse. In sports science, which is my specialty, only 6% of research is done exclusively in women and in girls, and just about 30% includes them. That means 70% of the time, sports science research doesn't even consider women's biology, even though these data are later used to develop clinical interventions and policy in sport. But why does it matter to you, you may ask? Because each time you see a study on the best way to lose weight, build muscle, improve your 5K time, or recover from injury, 70% of the time, that study was not based on yours, your daughter's, or your mother's experiences. Those fantastic results they promise you, and you inevitably don't get, they were most likely not done in a woman's body. One that menstruates, takes contraceptives, breastfeeds, gets pregnant, and becomes menopausal. 70% of the time, those female experiences were not factored into a program that you now diligently follow and beat yourself up when you don't live to the expectation. Those pesky hormones that affect everything when we're doing the research are not too important when we want to apply it, apparently. Now clutch your pearls. For African women and girls in sport who are already on the margins of global sports science discourse, we experience double discrimination because of what little research there is on women and girls in sport, even less is on us. Of the 100 most influential research studies in sports science to date, none are from the global south. For the African woman in sport, our biology is often not considered for the most part. The few times it actually is, our unique lived experiences, our religious, socioeconomic, cultural, and environmental circumstances are ignored. Never mind that the nutritional plan being touted is impractical for the regular African. Never mind that my box braids or dreadlocks do not fit into that swim cap. You take it, you modify yourself to fit into it, or you leave it. After all, squatters have no rights. As squatters, we aren't expected to demand a proper bed and clean linen. We should just be grateful we are let into the master's shed and we are not out in the rain. Again, why am I bothering you about the need for equity in sports science research? Because, as Nelson Mandela once said, and I paraphrase, sport is a powerful agent for societal change and for driving equity. And sport is a microcosm of society. So the dehumanization and discrimination of marginalized individuals as seen in society at large is reflected in all facets of sport. The shame of being one of the 65% of African women and girls who cannot afford sanitary pads and have to use all drugs instead. The fear of being ostracized by your community, being labeled deviant, ugly, and unmarriable because you have an athletic body. The ignorance of how your menstrual cycle affects your athletic performance, and being told that your period is something to be ashamed of and should never be spoken about in public. The absolute dread at the thought of running because your breast slapping you in the face with each step causes you embarrassment and actual physical pain. That is the status quo for African women and girls in sport. And in this, or parts thereof, we can identify ourselves, our daughters, or our mothers. While my perspective is that of a Black African woman in sport, this invisibility in research is repeated across all sectors of life and in all other systemically marginalized groups. Indigenous peoples, people with disabilities, members of the LGBTQIA+ community. The list is endless. As such, we each need to do something in our own sphere of influence to challenge and disrupt this status quo and to change the definition of the default human being. If we accept this status quo and do nothing, male-dominated structures will continue to make decisions, rules, and policies for non-male individuals. The result? No empathy is shown for marginalized individuals or their life experiences. If we do nothing, African women and girls in sport will continue to be on the margins of global discourse. At best, as an afterthought. At worst, as barely a footnote. We will not only be invisible in the research, but in budgets, policy formulation, the general discourse, and in product development. Our experts will continue to make decisions about us based on information that came from people unlike us. We will continue to live as third-class citizens existing on other people's leftovers. If we do nothing, our narratives will not be recorded. Our experiences will not be validated. Our needs will stay unmet. And I will continue to look like a praying mantis when I drive. Doing nothing is not an option.